What's good in the hood, YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here, bringing you guys another video. Today I'm bringing you guys a video on Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel episodes 20 and 21. You may be thinking to yourself, why am I reviewing episodes 20 and 21, and why didn't I do episode 20's review when that came out? I have a reason for that, and I'm going to explain that. I'm also going to explain how I'm going to be doing this review, and I have a bunch of other announcements that I want to discuss. So let me just start off with explaining why I wasn't able to do it last week. Big reason is that I have these major papers that are due in a couple of weeks, and I'm trying to get them done early so that way I don't have to worry about them and I can focus more on videos again. Right now, I have so much to focus on with paperwork and also my own job right now, so I just need to get all that stuff done before I can actually really bring my attention back to doing more videos. I have a lot planned for Power Rangers Beast Morphers when that comes out in the spring, so expect that. I might be doing some merchandise stuff, which is something that I always try to talk about and I always want to do more of, but I never get the chance to just because money and also because of other factors. But now I'm actually making, I have a job and things are going well, and I might buy some stuff just to maybe do some reviews on it. Again, I'm not 100% sure, so don't hold me to that, but it is something I am considering. And I have a bunch of other things that I want to discuss regarding Power Rangers, regarding a whole bunch of different things that are happening in the franchise, because there's so much that I want to talk about. Kamen Rider and also Super Sentai stuff. I wasn't able to do anything last week because there was nothing that released last week. They actually decided to take a break, and this weekend they're going to be releasing new episodes. So they're going to be releasing a new mecha, and they're going to also be having a new form for Kamen Rider Geo. So both of those are great. And now I'm going to discuss this episode. These episodes. So the way I'm going to be doing this is that episode 20, which is called Doom Signal, I'll be discussing through highlights. Basically, I will be talking about them, small points, and then discussing details overall, but not really getting into like the finer details because of the fact that it's later, and episode 21 kind of goes into what happens after the fact. So I'd rather not go so deep, and also because of the fact that episode 21, and also because of the fact that I don't want to make this video super long, because I'm already expecting this video to be relatively long because it's 2, and also because of a few other announcements at the very end of this video. So anyway, let's get started. Doom Signal was a pretty good episode. It continued the story where episode 19 ended off with Mick turning evil due to the brain control device that was developed, and the thing that was developed by Tynamon. And what happens is that Tynamon, as we know, was destroyed, but now Mick is working for Madame Odious. What happens is that Mick ends up fighting the Rangers at one point. He does turn into an evil Ranger, which is cool. I like that idea. It's something that I appreciate, and it's good to see that he's using his Ranger form again. So that is nice. What we do end up seeing as well is that he develops this device that is a big version of the one that was used on him to brain control him, but in this case it will be used on all of Summer Cove to basically make them Madame Odious' slaves. So that's something to note. That does end up happening. We do end up seeing in that episode as well that there's an instance where Calvin tells the truth about himself regarding something that he did, and this leads to we call it Haley and Calvin breaking up. Haley specifically breaks up with Calvin for his actions and his decision to tell the truth about certain matters. And the thing is that he's a very honest guy, and that's a good thing. It's also a bad thing in some ways. So that's kind of an issue, and that's how he has been from the start. So the thing is that I wanted to bring up this other detail, and this is something that's actually pretty important about that idea. So them breaking up. First of all, that has never happened before in the Power Rangers history. They've never really had breakups. In fact, relationships usually are fairly minor even when they have them. There's usually some level of interest between certain characters, and certain characters show some romance or some connection more than others depending on the season. Some seasons really don't show it as much, or maybe they imply little things, but nothing is like absolute. It really depends per season, obviously, as well. But what we do end up seeing in this episode is that this happens. And originally what was going to happen, and just understand this now, they were going to break up in pretty much any version of the script, I believe. But there was a version that originally was planned, rather than just having them break up, it was going to have it where Calvin was going to get together with Sarah, and that was going to happen. But in this case, I think it makes a lot of sense that they decided to go the route that they did, just because in the end, and I'm going to say this right up front, they do get back together. And this is important because, you know, if you have it where he ends up, separating from Haley and then he gets together with Sarah, it kind of promotes this idea of just, you know, getting back together with people and, getting together with other people quickly, and, you know, this idea of not taking time and also promoting certain relationship situations that kids may not really, kids shouldn't necessarily echo or, use as an accurate representation of how you should be in a relationship. So that's kind of the big reason why this is probably better, because in the end it leads to them getting back together, which is a much more positive story, because of the fact that way there's them together, there's them apart, and then they're back together. So it's a sweeter ending rather than something that comes across as having this other relationship in between that could create bigger problems and tension between the team as well. So that could have also been good as far as story goes, but as far as when you think about it from the kid's perspective, that's the issue. That's probably the biggest issue that I could see as to why they didn't go that way. But again, that's neither here nor there. And I think honestly, in this case, based on how the story is run and certain vibes that they put across, it would be very out of character had they gone that route as well. Just understand that now. So anyway, moving on, what we do end up seeing is that, I said before, Mick ends up fighting the Rangers at one point, but all these things happen. Calvin at one point gets brainwashed, and eventually, they're continuing to seek out the Rangers and try to defeat them. In the following episode, which is the final episode, not including the Christmas episode, which is called Reaching the Nexus, things continue. This episode has it where the Rangers, they already know that Mick now is evil. And what happens is that they don't know where Calvin is, and at the same time, they know that Mick will lead Madame Odious to their base, and that because that is true, they need to make sure that Redbot leaves the base with the Super Ninja Steel and possibly the Ninja Nexus Prism. What happens is, though, that Mick manages to lead Madame Odious to the base, and they manage to steal the Ninja Nexus Prism, the Super Ninja Steel, and deactivate Redbot. So all three of those things happen. Mick is still evil, and he manages to do all this stuff. And then what happens is that the Rangers eventually return to the base. They have to sneak around one of the what do you call it? The foot soldiers for the season, the Bashabots. And they managed to do that, and they managed to bring Redbot back up. So he ends up, rebooting and remembering what happened, and they end up realizing that Mick had stolen the Ninja Nexus Prism and the Super Ninja Steel. Now, what we do end up seeing is that following all this, we end up seeing that the Rangers do end up splitting up at one point, where Sarah and Haley go after the people that are brainwashed, and they end up going on to the Galaxy Warrior Dome. Oh, that's the other thing that happens in episode 20 I forgot to mention. In that episode, Victor and Monty are also brought onto the Galaxy Warrior Dome, where they're made to entertain the aliens aboard the ship, and they dress up as clowns where they have to do different stunts and juggle and just do things that a clown would do to entertain the people. Now, what does end up happening is that Sarah and Haley are brought up, and they pretend to be these mindless, brainwashed people as well, so they can get on top of there, and they try to help out. Now, in the meantime, we end up seeing that the other three Rangers are dealing with other issues, like discovering the fact that Madame Odious has the Super Ninja, the Super Nexus Ninja Star. So what's important about this star and why it's really significant is because Brody and Levi's father had a star very similar in the very first episode, where we ended up seeing the flashback, and he had the star which separated into the 6 Ninja Steel, the Ninja Power Stars that the Rangers have. And what happens is that this one's the super version, which means that it's way more powerful than just that one. And so the thing is that they're very concerned with the potential risk that it could bring by him having this super ninja steel, that Madame Odious could have by using it. And so they begin to worry about this, and then eventually Dane, Brody and Levi's father, appears, and he's ready to attack them, and he has his ninja blade ready. He's ready to go at them. And what happens is that in the meantime, Sarah and Haley split up, where Sarah is going after the people on board and trying to deal with the Basher bots. And then in the meantime, what we end up seeing is that Haley finds the satellite and is knocked onto the side of the ship, where Calvin, we end up seeing, is using his ninja blade, and he's about to destroy Haley, but then Haley has her gun, and her ninja gun that she has, and she uses it to blast the satellite and destroy it. And what this does is it creates an explosion that deactivates the brain controlling waves that are affecting Calvin and everyone else on the ship and on Earth. So this is very important, because what this allows for is all those civilians that are being brain controlled stop being brain controlled, so they're able to take all the Basher bots off the ship. And what we do end up seeing is that everyone's left the ship, and then following this, we end up seeing that Victor and Monty are put in the position to rescue everyone that's on the ship by finding a way for everyone to be teleported off, because there's no Power Rangers in the area, even though really the three, Calvin, Haley, and Sarah are there. And the other thing is that there's a point in this episode, I forget if this happens early or late, I believe it happens around this time, that Haley and Calvin make up, and they, are better now in a relationship. It's not clear as to whether or not they're back together officially. I believe they say they are, but it's a little bit weird. Anyway, what does end up happening is that Victor and Monty help everyone off. And then in the meantime, what we do end up seeing is that the Rangers are on Earth, and what happens is that all 6 of them are there. They end up finding Madame Odious is trying to put the Super Ninja Nexus star into the Ninja Nexus prism to activate its powers, or so that she can merge with it, because she has the fusion star that she took from Levi originally. And so what happens is that she manages to do all this with the help of Mick, which Mick actually ends up also losing his mind control at this point, the brain control. But what happens is that these Rangers end up working together. They do transform, and they're fighting Madame Odious, and at one point Madame Odious manages to finally merge, and she takes the form of her final form in the show, which she uses against the Rangers. And she's very powerful, she's very gruesome looking, and she looks like a way more insane version of her normal form. If you've seen the Japanese show, you know this form, but it's still very interesting to look at, and it's still a very cool form, and I was waiting for this to finally happen. But because of the way that they structured things, it's different than how it actually worked in Japan, because originally in Japan, Galvanox was the main villain, and Madame Odious was kind of like a step below him, and yet in this case they kind of it's sort of the same thing, but it's also not, because of how they structured the story, because Madame Odious turns into a major villain while Galvanox is initially the main villain. It's weird how they're doing things in these more recent seasons. Anyway, what does end up happening is that there's a point where Preston uses his magic to fuse the energy from the 6 power stars, so that all 6 Rangers end up gaining the strength and the energy from the 6 stars that will equate to something similar to the Ninja Nexus prisms. The Ninja Nexus star that Levi and Brody's father had originally when Galvanox attacked. And what happens is that in this case, they managed to harness that power to destroy Madame Odious So that is something to note. Unfortunately, this episode does not show Dane using his Ranger form, so we do not see that form again. And same goes for Mick. Mick does not use it again during this episode. So that is something to note. It is good that Mick does get to show it at least one extra time, but it would have been nice if both of them had it, and obviously it would have been nice if Dane had more appearances. Again, maybe they'll feature him one more time in the Christmas episode, but something tells me probably not because of what they're doing for that episode, and we'll talk about that. So as far as things go with this episode following that, the Rangers rejoice because they managed to defeat Madame Odious and things are good. There's a point where they're back inside. Oh, there's a point where Victor and Monty escape the Galaxy Warrior Dome, but prior to that, they end up actually throwing these bombs that are explosive that Cosmo gave them to juggle. Which what happens is that they throw them at Badana and Cosmo and destroy them and destroy the Galaxy Warrior Dome. And Victor and Monty still managed to escape, which is really cool. This is kind of their redemption. This was something that was hinted at from the very start, was this idea of them being heroes in the end and getting their just desserts where they feel like they did something great and things work out for them. Because in the end, Victor finally gets his 50th award for saving all of Summer Cove. Yes, that does end up happening. That things do work out in the end for everyone. The Rangers as well, what happens is that they end up putting all the stars back in the Ninja Nexus Prism, and they finally send the Ninja Nexus Prism off. There's also a point where Mick ends up, they think that Mick is going to go back to the Lion Galaxy, but what happens is that instead of that occurring, from what we can tell is that Mick's going to stay there. He wants to continue to teach, and he's going to be able to speak to his parents every night. So he's going to be able to stay in touch and everything, and they won't have to be far apart as him and the Rangers, because he loves the Rangers. He cares about them too much. Even though they're not going to be the Rangers anymore, they're still going to be his Rangers in a way. He's their mentor, so there is that connection, there is that relationship, and that will never end. And so they are happy to know that, and they're going to work together and things will be good. And Redbot's got to stay behind as well, because he's not going to be going with Mick anymore, because he was going to originally go with Mick, or at least that's what's implied. So yeah, pretty much that's about it. The episode overall was pretty good. I liked the way that they ended the finale. I thought it was decent. Definitely better than the way they ended it in Dino Supercharge. Better than the way that they ended it in Ninja Steel as well. I think that the way that they ended it was good. I think it was a solid ending. I think things are good, and they do mention the fact that they're going to continue to train even though they're not Rangers anymore, and I like that idea because there's no reason why they can't continue to train. And they're just good characters, and even if the season wasn't the strongest season from what we've seen, I've found that there's a number of things that I've liked, and there's been a number of things I don't like, and I'm going to be discussing my final thoughts, not in this video, in another video, but I won't be discussing it till next week. Normally I discuss it prior to the Christmas episode, because Christmas episode usually doesn't matter, but next week's episode is going to have something pretty cool, so I do want to look into seeing that before I give my absolute final thoughts, because maybe that episode may make me feel a little bit better about certain things, and that's something to note. Now you may be wondering, what is that special thing that's happening next episode? Well, we know already that next episode, based on the title, which the title for the episode, if you're wondering what it's called, and I'm going to say this now, is what's it called? It's something like Poisey Show or something like that, which is supposed to reference like Poisandra from Power Rangers Dino Charge. So what's apparently said is that maybe Poisandra, possibly Wrench, and maybe Sledge might be returning. What's also been said, and this is absolutely confirmed now, you can also find proof of this if you've read this book, which yes, just came out a couple days ago, in fact, on Wednesday, and I did manage to get it, which I will tell you this much right now, I have not read it, but I will say this: if you are a Power Rangers fan, if you're a big one, if you're a small one, buy it. It's expensive, but it's worth it. It's totally worth it. It's a really good book. I really, really like it. and I'm looking forward to actually finally getting into it. It's made by Inside Editions, which is very, very cool. And I mean, this thing is awesome. This thing is just awesome. It has the foreword written by Amy Jo Johnson, who was Kimberly the Pink Ranger. But it does mention the Christmas episode because the Christmas episode is going to be featuring Yoshi Suderso, Peter Suderso's brother. Yoshi Suderso is the actor that played Coda, and Peter Suderso is the actor that played Preston, and both of them are brothers in real life. So yes, the two brothers will be getting an episode together in the Christmas episode, which is cool, and it's also nice to know that like Poisandra, possibly Sledge, and maybe Wrench will be returning, because what that means is that they're not only bringing back a Ranger, which is already amazing, they're bringing back other characters. What this also might end up leading to is maybe that episode that, what do you call it? The Japanese show was known for, where we ended up seeing the Blue Ninja Steel Ranger interacting with Yoshi Suderso in the Japanese show, as a random civilian that he interacts with. And the thing is that they may reference that and have that little moment carry over into the actual episode, which would be very cool if they do that. But also, just in general, hopefully they have an instance or something where we end up seeing that Coda and Preston end up fighting alongside each other. People want that, and I would love it. I think that that'd be super, super exciting. So yeah, very, very cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Maybe, but very unlikely that we're going to see the Green Ninja Steel Ranger. I think if they're already doing all the things that they're doing for that episode, I feel at this point it's probably safe to say that they're likely not going to do the Green Ninja Steel Ranger. And there was nothing ever that confirmed that they were going to in the first place. Many people were hoping for it, and I was kind of hoping for it as well. I was hoping that maybe Princess Vieira or the other character, Emily, I believe it was called, was going to be the Green Ninja Steel Ranger. Sad to say, I don't think that's going to be the case. If it is, great, but from what I can tell, it doesn't seem very likely. And honestly, she was a movie ranger anyway, so she's not one that I would, hold my breath for her to appear. If she does, great, but I'm not expecting it. I'll be very curious to see where the timeline will be in this movie, because it will be interesting to see whether or not they'll have some confirming point that will hint at this being after Madame Odious has been destroyed, which isn't that hard for them to do, just because of the fact that they just don't have to use the Galaxy Warrior Dome. And then if they just have Poisandra, Sledge, and Wrench show up, whether it be on the ship or on Earth, that's fine. Again, we'll have to wait and see. I'm also curious to see how this will work with Coda in the timeline and how he was able to travel back to the future. What led to it? Will they reference the dimensional, the morphing grid and, things from episode 10 of Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel, where they had the, the different dimensions and everything like that. I'd be very curious to see if that does end up happening. If it does, that's cool, and I would like to hear some sort of nod to that, just to at least acknowledge the fact that they're, this isn't his first time seeing them, other than maybe them saying, oh, hey, it's Coda, which I'm sure they will do either way. But, that would at least kind of further strengthen things and make things more solid, in my opinion. But you understand my point. Basically, I want something to kind of hint at that idea. So overall, I would say this episode was something really enjoyable, and I'm looking forward to the Christmas episode, and also episode 19 was good. Again, I'm looking forward to the season being over, but I'm also, in some ways, it will be a remembered season. It's definitely not, I'll say this much right now, from what I can say so far, there's a number of things I liked, as I said before, and there's a number of things I could have done without. But you know what? Overall, we had some really great actors. We had some really great people in the show. Maybe their acting for some of them wasn't as great as other ones, and certain things weren't as great sometimes. But you know what? I thought overall they did a good job in a number of places, and it's better than a number of other seasons have been. And maybe I'm not necessarily saying that that's true for everyone. I know plenty of people who think that this is actually probably one of the worst iterations in the series, if not the worst. Some people definitely have said that, where they feel it's the worst or like one of the worst seasons. And I wouldn't go as far as to say it's that bad. Maybe Ninja Steel, Super Ninja Steel, I don't know. There have been parts of it that have definitely made me think that way, but there have been parts of it where I felt like they've done really good stuff. And I don't want to, refer to them in that way, because I think that there's a lot of redeeming things that have come in more recent episodes that have kind of pushed me against that notion. Like, if you talk to me back during the spring, I would probably agree with you in a number of cases. But if you talk to me now, I think they've done a lot of good things, some bad, but that's about it for me. I'll get into that in more detail in that big final discussion. So until then, guys, I'm Crazy Samurai 71, and goodbye, guys. And also, quick mention again, if you are interested, definitely look into this. This is about $50, I believe it was. You might find it a little cheaper online, but I bought this at Barnes & Noble's. You can find it there. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on a number of sites. But it's really worthwhile. It's a huge, heavy-duty book, and it's just really cool. Like, if you want to know more about this, I might do a video on it. But definitely something worth looking into and buying if you're a fan. And please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.